Hello everybody, here we are at Treasures and Creations, and I have a special guest today. This is Laurie Nielsen, and Laurie has some wow factor. And I'm gonna let Laurie tell you why I love it when she comes to our shop. She brings skulls and she teaches crystal classes. So we're gonna let Laurie talk for a minute. Laurie?
Thank you, Rodney. My name's Laurie Nielsen, and I have the honor of being able to teach classes out of Treasures and Creations. And my specialty has kind of been about crystal energy. And I do teach a crystal healer certification that I've done for many years. And I also teach a lot of classes about personal energy, metaphysics, pyramid energy, meditation, things to help people get in touch with themselves and their inner knowing and their gifts. And so I do some coaching and I do readings here as well. And one of the things that I do is I would call myself a networker of people. I like to bring together people, so whether it be for business to customer, client, but also people that are also trying to bridge to themselves, their higher nature, their inner knowing, their gifts, their intuition. And so whether that be, well, a lot of times it's through the use of crystal energy that can help us do that. So I like to think of myself as that, as someone that bridges and brings people together and for higher consciousness, for a better world. So that's some of the things that I do.
So what got you started?
Wow. You know, all I can say is that I remember even from a young age that psychics fascinated me. And as I watched them on television and they talked, I was always kind of envious and wished I was like that or could do those things. And then with time, in my later years, but as far as rocks go, I've always loved rocks. I lived in Nebraska, it's very flat there. And all my relatives lived in Utah. So if you've ever driven that long strip of I-80, it's very flat for a very long time. And then it starts to get more hilly and then more rocky and then more mountainous. And that drive was like my Disneyland. I loved looking at all the different rock cliffs and things as the terrain changed, became more beautiful to me. So I was always drawn to the mountains, always drawn to rocks, and I always loved to play with them. And my dad nurtured me in picking up and finding cool rocks on the ground. He was a nature guy. So I would say the rock affinity thing started at a young age, but I just didn't know what it was until I got into my later years and came back into myself, you know, kind of got away from the worldly stuff and really became interested in the energy. It was the internet that introduced me to the energy of crystals, and I started learning, and then buying. I think some people can relate. And then you amass this huge collection of rocks and stones and crystals, but I felt like I knew enough that I could actually, at one point, you know, start teaching about it. So I did. I got some credentials, and then I began to put myself out there. And along the way, Crystal Skulls was very integral to my journey as well. And so that's one of the things that I do is I educate people about crystal skulls and their energy and their history. And I also bring some of the ancient crystal skulls to that travel around the United States. I bring some of their caretakers and the skulls here to Salt Lake City so people can interact and partake of their energies as well too, for what I would call energy upgrades and consciousness upgrades.
And which skulls are we talking about so that people know what we're talking about? Go ahead.
Well, that's good. This gets us a little bit into the history and some things too, so it's a good place to talk about that. There are two verifiably, you will find lots of information on the internet and you will read lots of things, and some of that stuff has a lot of opinions. So what I speak here lays a really nice, clean foundation. As far as studies go and scientific evaluation, there's only two in the world that have been deemed to be what we could call ancient by age. And all crystal and stone and minerals, they're ancient because they just take forever to be made, and we're talking like over 1,000 years. We're talking about the carving part of that because every stone is ancient. So the carving and so that's studied. The markings is studied. There's very many different tests that they're taken to. So two, one of them being Max, the ancient crystal skull, and the other one is called Shana Ra. So those two, they're both quartz crystal skulls, and they are deemed to be ancient. as far as their cutting and carving and having been around and worked and used for a long time. So anyway, there's a famous published study about that people can read about as well. And so certainly there are probably other ancient skulls out there. You just have to get it tested and looked at and things. So.
Okay, so at what point did you really start getting involved with skulls in comparison to your journey?
First came the crystals, and then I was frequenting classes and things at crystal shops in town, and I came across the flyer for Max. And there was something about that crystal skull thing that just really appealed to me and I latched onto. And I went and I saw Max when he did come to town. And so I went and I had my first experience with Max, and as a person who is very excited and wants to bring things together, I began to learn more and started teaching about their energy, but also getting involved in networking and bringing the people that had crystal skulls to Salt Lake City. So I did what I had to get them here.
Okay, so here's the big question. Do you know when Max is coming back to town? And if so, will you share it on my show?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes. Max comes to Salt Lake City yearly, and so he'll be here in May. The first weekend of May, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and typically that's where people can come. They can schedule a session, they can be around the skull, partake of the energy, meditate. I can talk a little more about that as well too when we come back to talking about what you do with crystal skulls. But yes, first weekend of May in 2000.
Awesome. There you go, Salt Lake, and the rest of you. Max is going to be here again. Awesome. I miss him every time he's here. I'm not going to miss him this time. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. So let's talk a little bit about your crystal certification class, and then I think maybe we can go ahead and get into the skulls. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Crystal healer certification is meant to be something that enhances a person's working knowledge of crystals and crystal energy, so you can assist people on that level of physical wellness and well-being, mental, emotional well-being, and also spiritual, which is what I say all the time, is that crystal energy is good for, and we know that they can work and affect us on those levels. So, and spiritual being like your gifts and connection to your higher self and things. So if we can, let's talk about crystal energy a little bit. Let's lay the foundation, and it's perfect.
Sounds
but
great.
Goes into the crystal skulls. So let's talk about, we have a lot of quartz on the table. So quartz is the number one, sometimes touted number two, most common and abundant mineral in the Earth's crust. And quartz is, we'll just use that. It's also called the master healer, and for many reasons. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute, because it really helps people understand and make sense of how crystals actually benefit and can enhance and balance our energies. So crystal being the most abundant, quartz, it is clear, and it is all colors of the light spectrum can pass through it, which in light is information. And so all colors can pass through, which means it can receive all that in different light spectrums that we don't even see and think about. So and just think about that, because that's in the Earth's crust, and even quartz is mixed in with a lot of other minerals like granite and things too. So quartz, think of for a moment as technology, because that's how I'm going to talk about it for just a moment, because it'll make so much more sense. Quartz is in our computer chips that store memory, and also in our phones and things. It's data storage. It has data storage capacity. So you can upload and you can download stuff and information into quartz. You can, it can hold that, stores the information for long periods of time. It actually can conduct energy. It can do transduction, which is regulation of energy, like too much energy, and it can kind of balance and diffuse it. And, with applying heat or fire, you can, pressure or fire, it can generate electricity as well too. So it can do some really neat things. So when you think about that and the capacity, what do you think is running your cell phone? Cell phones do amazing things these days. And all that data is stored in a little bitty piece of this. So Now, let's take a piece of that. That's how it's really amazing, is that it stores information. And so when you work with it in a conscious way, you can put information into it. You can have it enhancing or informing yourself, your subconscious, which is really powerful. You can use it to balance, and lots of other things. So other stones that are not transparent, this is still quartz, it's just not transparent. We have a lot of other materials that, this is a type of quartz. We have lots of different materials, so they all do a different degree of, assistance for us. They might not have the capability to have all the light spectrum colors pass through, but still, there's still a solid and stable frequency being emitted, which means that stability regulates. So here's a good example. Like humans, when you think about us, we're biodegradable and we get old and we get sick and we feel good during the day. Here's our emotional spectrum throughout the day. We can go like this. But rocks and crystals have a fixed and stable energy, and they're the strongest anatomical structure in nature. So they are fixed and stable. They're like this all the time. So using the principle of physics or entrainment, when you get a crystal, something that's got that solid, stable energy, and you put it in your emotional field, and remember, we're like this, right? So you get that stable, beautiful energy in your field, you start to regulate out too. You actually come up and raise up to it, and that's what entrainment does. Think of the sun. The sun is very strong, and it warms up the temperature through the day. And think of crystals as that sun, that strong, beautiful energy that just raises you right up to it. That is one way to explain how entrainment, the more solid, stable energy is going to raise up the lower, more chaotic energy and make things more stable. So you could see how that could work in the integrity of your cellular structure. If you ever got injured or something, there's lots of ways to, especially quartz. Quartz is amazing for that. And first and foremost, people will report feeling more calm. It's the emotional level that we get affected on first, usually is the noticeable change that people experience when holding or working with crystals. And then with time too, you can use it to drop into meditative states more quickly and enhance your, it can help you pull out how your intuition works. And I love to show people how that works as well too, because that's what it showed me when I couldn't believe it, how much it loudened that and made that louder. So now let's talk about crystal skulls to this point. You have any questions to this point, Rodney?
Tell us about this one.
Okay, well, let's talk about this guy.
You have this one.
Well, this is Orion, and I was looking for a large skull. I have these smaller ones, and from we'll come back to that as well too, about how you can work with your skulls with the ancient ones, but these have the energies of the ancient ones. But I was ready for a big skull, and I came across one for a really good price, and it is quartz, but it has citrine, it's very light citrine. It reminded me a little bit of Max too, but I just felt this energy and I bought it, and its name is Orion. And this is the thing with crystal skulls. People report that they kind of have personalities, or, they're a skull. We're a skull, it's like a personality, a face, a being. And, all matter has consciousness, whether people want to believe that or not. If it functions, it has an energy. If it's a thing, it has a consciousness. It's emitting an energy. Wood, plastic, it's emitting an energy. So this is Orion, and I think I got him almost 3 years ago, and I didn't really want its name to be that, but that's what was given to me. And they'll give you sometimes their names, and sometimes we name them. But Orion, as we know, it's that constellation above the Great Pyramids, and I happen to have a connection and an affinity to Egypt and travel there quite a bit. And so it's probably working with that type of energy, helping to facilitate and bring that through. It hasn't been to Egypt, but it was carved in South America and has some really beautiful energies and some pretty rainbows and fun.
Trish and I really enjoy when you do bring him to the shop. I try to bring some of ours from the shop, and you always allow us to do that. Some of these others are here from the shop. I forgot that I was doing this today because I was going to bring my citrine from skull from home. He has been with Orion a couple of times, but He always wants to jump at the chance to do it again. So tell us about, so I've always heard this rumor, if you will, and give us the details on this. The rumor that I've always heard is that when a skull meets another skull, the ancient skull, okay, let's start with maybe a meeting with Max.
Okay.
I'm going to start there. What I've been told is that if I take my skull and sit my skull with Max, Max will transmit information that Max realizes is for me into my own skull.
Yes.
Is there something behind that?
Absolutely. There is a theory behind that. And using your intention, you absolutely can have that. You can make that happen. Here's how that works. Essentially, first of all, with the energy of crystal, it's cut. A crystal skull is cut to the shape of a human cranium. So the resonant energy, as far as getting it and transference of energy, it is a more smooth transition energetically because they're the same shape. And yes, it is typical to take in any situation where you're having a crystal skull gathering, meditations, or meeting with an ancient crystal skull. You want to take your either crystals, a few crystals, or your crystal skull there. And often you can purchase them as well from the caretaker. They're usually bringing many that have been, which these are, that have been sitting around the skull and will take on the energy or information, things like that. So yes, you do. And a lot of times, you've seen our parties and we call them I call them skull parties. And you put them around each other and they're talking to each other is the theory. I mean, and sometimes people who are psychically, sighted and gifted, you do this. And there's a process of activation, and I'm talking theoretically as well too, and what you'll hear and learn if you research yourself, it just saves you the time of this, that when they are first cut, they're kind of a blank slate, energetically as far as coherent energy. And there will, of course, be information in it, but you get a crystal skull because it's like a buddy and a friend. It's like a working partner. It's like I would take mine because I know how it stores data, as we were talking about earlier. I will take mine with me. I would take it to my shaman initiations, to ceremonies, to classes, because the energy and information that's there, was retained for me, what I needed to know. And then when you take that home with you, or you have it near you, or you're sleeping, it's next to your bed sleeping at night, it is informing your subconscious, and you're going to get it. You're going to be able to pull that information out for what you need. And energy can be stored in there, and so can information. So what that means is you have a working partner in changing and shifting and breaking habits and creating new ones and enhancing and lifting up or letting go of patterns that don't work. And so that's how they're so beneficial. So yes, you get them around each other like a brand new one, and maybe gets a little activation around one that's been around ancient ones. So for instance, this one, if I just want to show you this, let's talk about Shana Ra for a moment. Max and Shana Ra were together at this study at the British Museum a long time ago. And this is a replica carved by a famous carver named Leandro Souza. So he made several for the caretaker. You can see it's kind of skinny on the side, kind of more blunt and flat here. This way, this is the shape, but it's much bigger. It's, a bigger one, just a smaller one. And so this was carved in the shape and was around Shana Ra. And I acquired it when they came to Salt Lake City. And so it's taken on that energy and it's going to assist me how I need. And so it's amazing that way. This is Mount St. Helens ash, which I always thought ash was powder, but apparently it can be very glassy or rough feeling. And so there's a lot of artisans in that area that melt the ash and make it into other things. So this has been melted and shaped into a crystal skull. And this one I obtained in 2011, and it went with me to all over Egypt and all the sacred Temple of Isis, King's Chamber, private, in the King's Chamber for 45 minutes or so. So it went everywhere. So we call that really activated, because if you take your things to ancient sites and sacred places, they will pick up, the energy. But you want to intend that. You want to let it know that that's...
So that'd be like taking it down to Sonoma?
Yeah, Sedona.
Sedona, there we go. Sedona, Arizona, right. Or Taos, right?
Yes.
Because there are a couple places in America that are vortexes.
Energy vortexes.
Right.
And have, the ancients knew how to record and use stone, and they did things around the stone. So stone, you never know which stone or rock formation might have witnessed or been in the presence of some really special energy. And so you can benefit that, get a secondary imbuing is what we call that. So you do take them with you to sacred sites and things like that, and so you can bring some energy back with you, and it can inform you and help you.
So what about, some people seem to think that you want it to be a clear skull, and you did mention this briefly, that even the ones that aren't quartz have some potential. So is it better for it to be completely clear like this? The one here is like completely clear, okay? This one has a whole lot of things going on there. It looks like there's been some natural inclusions in there, to say the least.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So what about that? I mean, let me shut up and does it matter? Does it need to be clear?
It's personal preference. People are going to resonate or be drawn to certain types of stone. The thing with clarity and clearness is it's often thought theoretically that the transmission of energy will be smoother if it's clear. Max, for instance, though, if you ever see a photo of Max, he's got 5 different matrices where growth formations. And that doesn't naturally occur on the planet. He's not clear at all, but he's very interesting. He's kind of an anomaly, because you're not supposed to, when lapidaries look at that, they, which are cutters of crystal, they look at Max and they say, that's impossible. It should shatter. And so that doesn't really matter, as powerful as it is. The clarity doesn't seem to matter with a skull like that. So it's personal preference. So you just kind of figure out what you are in love with and what you like. The only thing with clearer skulls is that they can cost more, because it's a little bit harder to find naturally occurring.
Okay. So then part of the rumor that I've heard about Max is like in 3 or 4 different pieces, been under a microscope, electron microscope, and they don't know why it doesn't fall apart, or like you said, explode, break, whatever.
Yeah.
They have no idea what holds it together, or why it just doesn't fall apart. And I mean, I've never got to experience Max. I look forward to that.
Yes, that's a lot of amazing experiences can be, found. And sometimes, I know when I first was going to meet with him, I had so much anticipation about having an experience that was going to hit me on the head or be very obvious, that I couldn't really settle down and just enjoy it, But then the subsequent times he'd come in, that was easier to do. But so there are different ways. You will get something no matter what. And so bring a crystal so that it will get what you need. And think about it before. How would you like to grow? How would you be assisted? And in what way? And let that be communicated to your own stone so it can absorb that. And so you're the creator of your destiny. So
I love skulls. And as you can see, Trish and I have brought a few in from our shop. And it is all about, some people like the rose quartz, some people like citrine. I love citrine skulls.
Me too.
I like citrine rocks, so I love citrine skulls, right? We have a couple of ones. We've got an amethyst one there. These are out of Mexico, so they're from all over the world. And I tell people all the time, they say, how do you pick one? For me, I just kind of run some energy and see if anything's talking to me, because I really do speak crystals. So it's not hard for me to determine if a piece belongs to me. So what I like to do at this point, because I want my wife to get a chance, Trish to get a chance to speak with you as well. We're going to stop for a minute, and then I'm going to bring something in, and we're going to set it here. In the last couple minutes, we're just going to we'll wrap up. I'm going to have Trish talk about the raffle.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
but let's bring Trish in to chat with you.
Okay, so it's my turn to visit and chat with Laurie. And I was busy out doing the store, so if we cover some duplicate material, that's good, it makes it sink in. So Laurie, I've often been told that when one is working with a skull that there's a specific way to hold it. So
Let's talk about that for a moment. You will read, I was talking with Rodney about how when you start to research and you get into crystal skull energy and learning about it, you're going to read lots of things on the internet and some books and things. There will be lots of information presented to you. And so there are some theories that holding it maybe perhaps facing you, that there's a certain type of interaction that would probably be when you are trying to, perhaps meditating, perhaps trying to glean some of the information out of it, that say you just returned from an ancient crystal skull session where you'd sat with it and it had retained some information for you. So you could look at it and gaze and crystal ball gazing, you know, that kind of thing, and kind of go into a nice mellow meditation and glean some information that way. And sometimes holding away from you is a transmission of energy or asking to receive on your behalf as well. So you will read some things. I just tell people, play, have fun, and see what works best for you. A lot of people love to put their forehead to forehead. When you have a larger crystal skull, people like to do the third eye to third eye, or just placing your hands on it. So whatever feels natural to you. Some people actually feel energy in their hands and they love to touch, and some people love to hold. And I've done all kinds of things. I've laid down, I've put it on my chest, I've put it on my solar plexus, I've had like Max in one hand, laying down, and my guy on the other one, and you know, so just play.
That's intense. Just been talking about that. If you don't know who Max is, Google Max the crystal skull. That's intense. So one of the things that I was told, and it made sense to me, is when you're holding a skull, the reason that they make deep eye sockets is you put two fingers in it and you hold your hand back over this part because that's where the wisdom is. So that made sense to me. However, sometimes my large hand, you know, I have to get tiny skulls, and size doesn't really matter. But for me, this is what I like. Hey dude, how's it going? I like to talk to them. I like to be able to hold them. So like most crystals, there is no right or wrong. It just is, and it's about what resonates here. Whoops, just hit the mic. So, and the one thing that I've learned is there is no one perfect skull that everybody should have. People will resonate. That's why we have a variety of skulls here. Some people prefer the really fun. This is a titanium covered druzy quartz crystal. He's got a lot to say, very magical. This is relatively new out of Mexico. It's a zebra calcite. And then of course we have the quartz crystal, the citrine, the rose quartz, the amethyst. This beautiful blue guy that every time she puts it out, it's like, ooh. And with this blue one, for me, I just totally feel the ancients in that one. Like you have all the blue people, you know, like Avatar, the blue people. But I just feel so much of that energy from this one. You know, just a love of the ancients and the love that they bring. So that's cool. And, you know, I was of the opinion, skull and crossbones, danger, poison, pirates, and all of that. And I have learned, and you're probably the one that has allowed me to step away from those beliefs. And that stuff is cool for what it is. I mean, if you want to put it on rat poison, skull and crossbones, danger, poison, okay, that's a good way to represent it. But that's not what the skull is representative of.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is the first thing that when you talk about crystal skulls around some people and in some cultures, you can see their face change and they get concerned and they have an adverse reaction to it. Mm-hmm. So let's dispel all those myths right now. First of all, we are a skull. Okay, we have this is us. And even as a child, I mean, I knew that. I know where my thinking area is in my body, and I know that all the wisdom and knowledge is stored there. And so some cultures, of course, if you are one of those people that have an aversion or don't understand and think it's kind of strange with crystal skulls and you think they represent death, just think back to your earliest days. When did you first get exposed to the skull? Was it on television? Perhaps you saw something and it's like, oh, dead person, ooh, bad. You know, this was an unfortunate bad thing, or, you know, it means evil or something like that. It can be scary when you're a child, obviously. And that sticks with us because that's our frame of reference for the skull. And then as we get older, we realize that this is skull and crossbones means death. Pirates, you know, death, you know, scary. So, but we are a skull. And there are, when you learn about this, and I teach a few classes about crystal skulls, and there are some cultures that actually retain and keep. They revere the knowledge that's kept in the skull. Our skeletal system is made of mineral, and that's what this is. These are minerals. So therefore, information can be kept and stored in them. And there are some cultures that after the family members die, even let me use Simonopetra, Greece, is a Greek monastery, and they have bone ossuaries. They keep the skulls of the predecessors. So there's shelves and shelves and shelves. Why? Why would they do that? Well, in traditions, they knew that the prayers and the mantras and all that, you know how we have mala beads and we're reciting and we're putting that into the energy of the stones. And so same thing, that energy and the knowledge and the repetition is ingrained in your bones after you die. And that's what's left of you when you're gone and your flesh is gone, is the energy in the bones. So even down in South America on Day of the Dead, which is November 1st, they take the skulls you might have your grandmother's skull in your home on a mantle, and you might take her to the church and have her blessed and pray. And, you know, they revere them, they celebrate the dead. So that's some ways that people actually still revere. It's not scary to a lot of cultures, and then there's some cultures absolutely that are like, no. And that's, you know, we're just learning here and just being open to all the different possibilities and all the different ways that people use the wisdom. So bottom line is, skulls are about wisdom.
There you go. And for me, a good way to get past it was to actually experience a skull. Hold it. Love it. Be with it. Look deep into the eyes of the skull and realize, you know, you're really quite awesome, you know. And so now it's not uncommon for me to go through the store and talk to the skulls and pat them on the head, or, you know, any other crystal for that matter too. And what's really cool is, yes, they talk back, and yes, I may be crazy, but I like this way, so it works for me.
You know what's crazy is when you go with your spiritual friends, you go out to eat after a function and you all have crystal skulls. So they all come out at the restaurant at Village Inn and you're all on the table, you know, and people are walking by, and that's, there you go, don't feel bad.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, I'm going to dinner with you guys. I'm going to bring like this big cool
There
guy
we go.
here.
Bring your big...
I don't know what his name is yet. I get to have a conversation with him. But the skulls all have their own personality, just like the crystals. They're crystals. Every crystal has a story and a personality. And I feel that, you know, what Laurie brings to the table, brings to the table, is beautiful. And she sheds, for me, she has shed a whole different perspective and light on the crystal skull. Skulls in general, the way that I look at things, the way that I perceive things. And it's allowed me to really release and let go of those fixed beliefs that are nothing more than a fixed belief. And that fixed belief has been passed down from generation to generation to generation, which is why we talk about something that's called a chain breaker. Well, let's just go off on another tangent. I seem to do that well.
No, you're good.
So I'm a chain breaker because of the work that I do, the spiritual work that I do. I am able to break the chains that go to past ancestry, past lives, and create a whole new paradigm and shift. And a lot of it, you know, when I create with a skull and the wisdom of the ancients and the ancestors, I am shifting any of those fixed beliefs, anything that doesn't work, and any blocked energy. It's a very powerful thing. So, you know, it's something to really tune into. If it is something that you're intimidated by, or you don't quite get it and you're like, no, 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 I just challenge you to go to your local crystal shop. If you're here, come see us. Come experience the skull and let's talk about it, till you become comfortable with it. It's really quite awesome.
Yes, absolutely. I think that everyone can think back to their childhood, or if you're a parent, you can remember a child coming up to you with a rock or a stone. And we're just naturally, drawn to nature. Nature's very pure. And for people who think that's nonsense, about rocks, even just rocks, not necessarily crystals, ask them, so do you like to go camping? Do you go hunting? What do you do in nature? You like to go hiking, and why? And we were talking earlier about entrainment, which is it's a process in physics that is where the higher, more pure, stable energy is raising up lower chaotic energies. So you could, really enlighten or open up somebody's eyes to the fact that the reason why they're spending so much time in nature, and Utah's great because we have these great big mountains, is because the earth and the rocks are really helping to raise their vibration and stabilize and level out and bring us back to, what's more natural, a state of wholeness and well-being within. And that's from nature. So we can't always be out in nature, but we can have a little bit of nature with us. And so, you'll find that people are always quite interested in touching and looking at rocks, and that energy is always drawing us. Awesome. We know it internally. We don't even have to logically know. People are feeling and doing all the time, and they don't realize it. So once you do get in touch with it, you start to open up to that world of energy and the subtle nature of rocks and crystals and what they do.
Oh, and we see it in here all the time. I mean,
you have all kinds come in here.
Oh, yeah. And I've had people asking me, like I was just telling you, for a Crystals 101 class. I'm new to this. Where do I begin? And it's like, I could give them a list. However, the best thing to do is to kind of learn and define what resonates with your heart space, what resonates with spirit, because that's where the truth is. It's not, the books are fabulous. They're great guides, but there you have somebody's perception, somebody's experience. It may not be yours, and that's okay. So if you choose a crystal skull, you get to choose what resonates right here. Because if it doesn't resonate, it's really not yours, and then you're just buying a crystal skull. And you may end up liking it, but get one that really resonates. So there was a little girl in here while you guys were in here taping, and you may have heard her. She was a very jubilant young lady, and she was 2.5, and she was just running through the store and loving the rocks. So that's nice. The energy we all get to have.
Like a child.
Like a child,
innocent,
yes.
Just playing.
And a child shall lead them.
That's right.
All right, well, we need to move on and tell you about our raffle, so we're going to switch over to that right now. Okay, so this is our beautiful rose or pink amethyst, and yes, it looks like, I'll get it right this time, Africa, not Texas. I caught it this time. I don't know why I said Texas last time. But this beautiful piece is gorgeous, not only on the front, but on the back. You can see the back, and it's like kind of a funky, bumpy geode, and when they cut it open, this beauty is on the inside. And this particular piece came out of the Rio Grande do Sul mine in Brazil. Now, I may not have pronounced that the way it's totally supposed to be, but that's my version of it, and I'm sticking to it for now. So our raffle tickets are $5 each, or you can get 10 for $50, and we'll give you one for free. The Venmo information will be on there. You can Venmo me. You can call and do a credit card by phone. And if you live in Alaska and you win, we will ship it to you. So give us we're going to put our phone number on here.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. I don't know why I said Alaska. Maybe because I like polar bears. I don't know.
We'll ship anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll ship anywhere. So you can actually call or message us, and we can hook you up with some tickets. And then what I do is I put your name and phone number on it, send you a picture of the tickets so you have proof, and then they go in the bucket with the rest of them.
And our contact information is?
Our contact information is Treasures N Creations, 3419 South State Street, Salt Lake, and the phone number is 801-679-1717. You can find us on Facebook under Treasures N Creations. So hit us up, join this raffle. It's until March 31st, 8:30 p.m. will be the last tickets we take. At 8:45 we will do a live and pull the winner. So join us and enter this raffle and come see us for your crystal skulls.